Hello, fellow gardeners, and welcome to Smart Garden. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that could revolutionize the way you think about growing food. Our soil is dying, and conventional farming might be to blame. But there's an answer, hidden in plain sight, with the Amish. This guide unveils their revolutionary no-till approach and starkly contrasts it with modern seed sowing techniques. Discover the sustainable future of agriculture before it's too late. The Amish approach to farming didn't emerge from university laboratories or agricultural research stations. Instead, it developed through generations of careful observation, passed down from parent to child, refined through decades of watching what works and what doesn't. These farmers, learned to read the land like a book. They noticed how undisturbed soil, it actually retained moisture better during droughts. They saw how certain plant combinations just seemed to thrive together, and how leaving the earth intact created this self-sustaining fertility that, honestly, improved year after year. This wasn't ignorance of modern methods, but rather a deliberate choice rooted in stewardship and long-term thinking. What makes Amish no-till truly remarkable goes far beyond simply not turning the soil. It's really an entire philosophy that treats the farm as a living organism, rather than just a production facility. Companion planting sits right at the heart of this system, where beans fix nitrogen for hungry corn, while squash leaves shade out those competing weeds. Natural amendments like aged manure straw and compost are layered onto the soil surface, creating a protective blanket that feeds the earth, rather than forcing nutrients into it through synthetic means. Cover crops are planted between growing seasons, turning what would be bare, vulnerable ground into a living carpet that builds nitrogen and organic matter while choking out weeds. The resilience of these methods continues to surprise agricultural scientists who study Amish farms. During severe droughts that devastate neighboring conventional operations, Amish fields remain remarkably productive. Their soil, rich with organic matter reaching 8 to 12%, compared to the meager 2 to 3% found on conventional farms, acts like a sponge, holding water and releasing it slowly to plant roots. This isn't luck or divine intervention, but the natural result of working with soil biology rather than against it. So conventional agriculture evolved with, different priorities, mainly driven by the need to feed growing populations and maximize yields in the shortest time possible. The widespread adoption of tillage just made perfect sense in this context. By turning the soil, farmers could quickly bury weeds, incorporate fertilizers, and create these uniform seedbeds that modern planters could, work with precision. Monoculture cropping systems allowed for specialized equipment and streamlined operations where every plant received identical treatment. On paper, this approach seemed like pure efficiency. However, the hidden costs of this efficiency have actually been mounting for decades. Each pass of the plow destroys the delicate architecture of soil structure, collapsing the tiny pore spaces where air and water flow. Beneficial microorganisms that took years to establish are suddenly exposed to harsh sunlight and temperature extremes, decimating populations that plants depend on for nutrient uptake. The organic matter that took nature centuries to build gets oxidized and released into the atmosphere within just a few seasons. Fields become, addicted to synthetic fertilizers because the natural fertility factories have been dismantled. Weed problems actually intensify because tilling brings dormant seeds to the surface where they germinate in waves, requiring more herbicides to control. When you place tilled soil next to undisturbed earth, the difference is immediately visible. Conventional soil often appears fine and dusty, blowing away in the wind or washing into streams with the first heavy rain. Amish no-till soil, by contrast, holds together with a crumbly structure, teeming with visible earthworms and root channels. One compacts easily underfoot while the other springs back, cushioned by organic matter and fungal networks. This visual contrast tells the story of two fundamentally different relationships with the land. Beneath every square foot of healthy soil exists a universe more complex than any ecosystem above ground. Billions of bacteria, miles of fungal threads, countless protozoa, and industrious earthworms work together in an intricate dance of life and death, breaking down organic matter and making nutrients available to plants. In undisturbed no-till systems, these communities develop sophisticated relationships over time. Mycorrhizal fungi extend root systems by thousands of times, trading water and phosphorus for sugars from plants. Bacteria convert atmospheric nitrogen into forms plants can use. This microbial workforce operates 24 hours a day, creating fertility without a single bag of synthetic fertilizer. The water retention capabilities of no-till soil are nothing short of miraculous. That high organic matter content acts like millions of tiny sponges, absorbing rainfall and holding it in reserve. The intact structure creates channels where water infiltrates deep rather than running off the surface. During those dry spells, this stored moisture becomes the difference between crop failure and an abundant harvest. Erosion, which strips away millions of tons of topsoil from conventional fields annually, becomes virtually non-existent when soil remains covered and structurally intact. The ground literally holds itself together through root networks and fungal threads. Looking beyond a single season or even a single generation reveals the true genius of these practices. Healthy soil doesn't just maintain fertility, it actually improves over time, building organic matter year after year. This creates a compounding effect where each season becomes easier and more productive than the last. The carbon sequestration benefits alone make no-till farming one of the most powerful tools we have against climate change, pulling atmospheric carbon back into the earth where it belongs. These aren't just abstract environmental benefits, but practical advantages that translate directly into healthier plants, larger yields, and more resilient farms. The economic calculations for Amish no-till farming tell a compelling story. Without the need for multiple tractor passes, fuel costs plummet. Synthetic fertilizer bills shrink dramatically as soil biology takes over nutrient cycling. Herbicide use drops because mulch and cover crops suppress weeds naturally. While the initial transition requires patience and learning, the long-term economics favor the farmer who builds soil health. Small-scale operations particularly benefit because they can implement these techniques without massive equipment investments, using creativity and observation rather than purchased inputs. Resource independence becomes more valuable every year as fuel prices fluctuate and supply chains prove vulnerable. Amish farmers, for example, produce their own fertility through composting and cover crops, creating a closed-loop system that doesn't depend on distant chemical plants or international shipping. This self-sufficiency isn't about romantic nostalgia, but, really, practical resilience that becomes critical during disruptions. The knowledge and skills to manage these systems represent wealth that can't be taken away by market crashes or resource scarcity. The wisdom embedded in these traditional practices actually offers solutions to our most pressing modern challenges. Climate change, soil degradation, water scarcity, and the need for sustainable food production all find answers in principles that have proven themselves over generations. And, well, this isn't about rejecting all modern technology, but rather being selective, choosing innovations that support ecological health rather than undermine it. The beautiful truth about no-till principles is their scalability in both directions. Whether you're managing a backyard raised bed or a suburban lawn you want to convert to productivity, these concepts adapt beautifully. Home gardeners can start by simply stopping cultivation, adding thick layers of compost and mulch, and planting cover crops in empty spaces. Permaculture designs incorporate these ideas naturally, creating food forests and polycultures that mimic natural ecosystems. Even urban farming initiatives on rooftops and vacant lots benefit from building soil health rather than relying on artificial inputs. Starting your own no-till experiment doesn't require converting your entire garden overnight. Begin with one bed, cover it thickly with compost and mulch, plant through the mulch without disturbing the soil beneath, and observe what happens over a growing season. Notice how moisture retention improves, how weeds diminish, and how plants develop deeper, healthier root systems. Let success in this small space inspire expansion. Share seeds of cover crops with neighbors, exchange aged manure and compost materials, and build community around these regenerative practices. The vision for our agricultural future doesn't have to be one of degraded soils, chemical dependency, and environmental destruction. By learning from those who never abandoned sustainable practices, we can chart a course toward genuine food security and planetary health. Every garden converted to no-till principles, every farmer who stops plowing, every community that prioritizes soil health represents a victory for the future we want to create. If you found this guide valuable, please subscribe to Smart Garden and share it with fellow gardeners who care about building a more sustainable future. Together, we're not just growing food, we're growing hope. Let's keep this conversation going in the comments below. I want to hear about your experiences with no-till gardening and the questions you still have. Happy gardening, and remember, the best time to start healing your soil was yesterday, but the second best time is right now.